next step is to put the grapes in one of those two presses back there. In the press is a bladder like you see here on my left. So the grapes will go on the outside of that bladder, and all we do is pump air into the bladder and it expands and it presses the white grapes against the press. And if you see all the little slits in there, well, that's where the juice comes out and the juice accumulates in the pan underneath, and then we pump it into one of these tanks. Inside the tank, we put yeast and the fermentation begins. Red wine is made different because when you squeeze a red grape, you get white juice. All the color in the red wine and that tannin, the dry feeling in the red wine, that comes from just inside the grape skin. So when we crush the grape, we take all that material, the grape, the pulp, and the seeds, and we put that into a tank, and we add the yeast, and we let it ferment. We let the fermentation begin. And we let it sit there for 3 to 4 days. During that 3 to 4 day period, all the color, all the tannin comes out of the skin, it leaches out into the pulp. Then we take that material, put it into the press, and we squeeze the juice out, put the juice back in the tank, and we continue the fermentation. Now the rosé is made from all red grapes, as I mentioned upstairs. And the reason it's colored that way and not as dry and not as tannic as red wine is because we only let it sit on the skin for 1 day. So that's how we make those 3 wines. Ice wine production in Canada is very heavily regulated. There's certain steps you have to follow to make an authentic ice wine. First thing is you cannot pick the grapes until it's at least -8 degrees Celsius for 3 days in a row. We always wait till it's -10. You have to pick the grapes at night because if you get a mild day, the grapes thaw out. You can't use it for making ice wine. We pick them by hand because you don't want to break the skins on the grape before you press them. And we don't wear gloves because if you've got gloves on, you can break the skins. Anybody want to volunteer to pick ice wine grapes at -10 degrees Celsius? I didn't think so. So, it's labor intensive. We also leave that door open because we don't want the grapes to thaw out, so it's just as cold in here as it is outside. And the grapes are so frozen you can bounce them on the cement like marbles. All the water inside the grape is frozen. The only thing not frozen is a few drops of sweet nectar. It takes 2 hours to squeeze that nectar out of the grape, and we have to put 100 pounds per square inch inside that bladder to be able to squeeze that out. It takes 6 times as many grapes to make 1 bottle of ice wine as it does to make a regular bottle of wine. So because it's so labor intensive, and because of how many grapes it takes, because we have to net the grapes so the birds don't get them, we have to make sure they don't rot, and there's so much involved. That's why ice wine is so expensive. And because you're only getting a few drops of sweet nectar out of the grape, that's why the ice wine you tasted upstairs is so sweet. Now during the fermentation, the wine can get too hot or too cold. If that happens, we're going to lose the wine. So there's a series of pipes behind you on that wall. And inside that pipe, there's another pipe. And in the internal pipe, we put the wine through it. In the external sleeve, we put warm or cool water in there to help change the temperature of the wine so we don't lose it. Once the wine is fermented, it goes downstairs in one of those 4 pipes on the wall there into the cellar. And that's where we're going to go next. Are there any questions before we go downstairs?